I can't start today's show, and I can't really complete today's show without talking about the the rendition, the kidnapping of Palestinian activist Mmuid Khil that took place this weekend over in New York City. He's a Columbia grad student, a Columbia grad student graduate who has been basically kidnapped by ICE out of his house in New York City, leaving his wife 8 months pregnant at home, and been rendered to an ICE facility in Louisiana in what is obviously an attempt to separate him from legal counsel. I mean, I don't know what to say about this other than it is probably the most terrifying thing that's happened in recent memory in American politics. One of the most nauseating and truly frightening in terms of its implications. Because this guy is a legal resident of the country. He's a green card holder. They initially said that they were just canceling his student visa, and then they said they were canceling his green card. I mean, this is probably the most profound attack on freedom of speech that I can think of in my lifetime. And this is something that I think everybody needs to be aware of and be active in raising awareness about, talking about, protesting. I mean, I know it sounds stupid in light of, armed agents of the state just disappearing political activists for political free speech. But this is really something I think you should consider contacting your representative, your senator, your local government about. And if there's a protest on his behalf, I would also consider really looking into joining that, because if they can do this to a green card holder, there's not much that will prevent them from doing it to anyone who's a U.S. citizen. But I just want to make clear here that this is not an immigration issue. This is a freedom of speech issue. And I don't think it's in any way an exaggeration to state that the Zionist project and its supporters in this country are the single biggest threat to our constitutional rights that exist today.
Yeah, no, this is, even if this just was about immigration, it would be horrifying enough. But it is not an exaggeration to say that declaring someone's legal status and personhood as they exist in the United States by the standards of Betar or the ADL, this is a horrifying line that we have crossed.
And, in no public statement has Mmuid been accused of a crime, convicted of a crime, or they're not even pretending that that's the case. And if you look at the statement put up by the White House today, it said he's being deported for Hamas-aligned activities. And I see a lot of supporters of this crowing about anyone who provides material support for terrorism should be deported. Well, providing material support for terrorism is a crime. And if that crime has been committed, it's usually you're charged with it and it's adjudicated in a court of law. I think we should think very seriously about what being Hamas aligned entails. That he committed no crime. He committed no crime whatsoever. He is having his rights stripped away from him because he is a pro-Palestinian activist. He is Palestinian himself, and he was organizing protests to demand that the university that he is a member of divest from companies that profit off the genocide of his own people. I cannot stress this enough. A green card holder is entitled to all of the First Amendment rights that a U.S. citizen is. A green card holder is represented by politicians like Chuck Schumer, who has yet to say anything about this. And just to think about this in light of the endless bleeding that we've heard about freedom of speech and freedom of speech on campus, and the dire threat that anti-Semitism poses to Jewish college students. What are they going to, where are these people going to be when they start deporting Jewish American students for doing the exact same thing that Mmuid is accused of, which is to say nothing at all? You can't be, he's being accused of having an opinion that is anathema to the agents of Zionism in this country.
Yes, and making statements in support of Hamas, that just means anything other than complete fealty and subservience to Israel. There's no other definition. This country is not exactly shy about charging people with material support for organizations on the terror watch list or officially designated or whatever. There's endless people who are rotting away in federal facilities or who have been deported or otherwise charged with this for, things that if it were anyone else, if it were any other charge, it would not withstand the light of day or a decent attorney. But they are not even doing that. There is so little here in the way of an actual crime being committed. But that's kind of the point. The point is to scare the shit out of people.
Yeah, the crime is not supporting Israel. The crime is supporting Palestine. That's the crime here. And if that encompasses the way you feel, I mean, I think you have a duty to be very, very active in this regard. I mean, I'm thinking about this in the context of a Gallup poll I saw that was released just this past week that said for the first time ever, a majority of Americans are more sympathetic with Palestine than they are with Israel. And I think you're going to see, like, as the, the cosseted bubble of public opinion and support that exists for Israel in this country and has been maintained for decades now through politicians that are bought and paid for and, an extensive propaganda apparatus, as that continues to evaporate and that, like, the effectiveness of the previous sort of peaceful the carrot, shall we say, of support for Israel in the American public continues to evaporate, we are going to see, like I said, I think we're going to see agents of Israel, of the Zionist project, begin to get ever more feral and desperate and violent in terms of how they literally police speech that they find unacceptable.
Going back to what Will said about how it may seem silly to contact your elected representative or go to a protest in light of armed agents carrying out renditions at the behest of a fascist ethno state. I remember at the start of all this, we talked about how these next 4 years or however long, it could be a test of a lot of things. It could be a test of how much you are willing to risk, how much you are willing to put yourself in the line of fire, how much some of these things may really mean to you. Right now, with attending a protest or contacting your elected representative, I mean, if that feels silly, well, fucking do it anyway. Because the first test of that is any of this at least worth you potentially feeling silly or like an asshole or like you were fighting a losing battle?
Yeah.
If it's not, I don't know what the fuck you're doing.
Yeah.
It's worth at least trying anything.
And just to go off that, like the intention here is to to stifle freedom of speech in this country, to stifle a political opinion that is essentially held by the majority of Americans. So take some strength from that, because there are more of us than there are of them. So the power here is in continuing to speak out, to continuing to make your voice heard, continuing to share and using the rights that we do have for the time being in this country to make a statement of political speech, which is that Israel and its surrogates in this country have no fucking right to tell us, to dictate terms to anyone in this country of what is and isn't acceptable, or what does and doesn't constitute support for terrorism.
I remember at the start of the first Trump term, during the Muslim ban, where it was definitely a different environment and tone and tenor, but they did attempt like a similar idea, and obviously a different application, a different time, but the idea behind it, which is to use people's legal status and their freedom of movement as a tool to scare the shit out of people. That was the attempt. And that was met with a critical mass of people, with an overwhelming response. And I know that people don't have a very long memory for these things anymore, but it did effectively scare them. It didn't totally stop the policy, but it stymied them, and it did gum up the works enough to make a potentially more horrifying presidency much more ineffectual. These things are absolutely worth doing.
And one last thought I'll share on this is, if you are a professor at Columbia University, if you're any way associated with Columbia University, and your attitude towards this is, I'm just going to keep my head down until things blow over, I would suggest that you consider keeping your head down on a walk from the Brooklyn Bridge to the East River. Because, like, whoa, okay, I'm just going to keep my head down during this. Just look away. Just look away. Look off the Brooklyn Bridge to the water below would be my advice to you.
Yeah, there's no point in you fucking being alive after this, if that's it. If it's not this, if this is not worth your ire, then fucking what is? I could go to your house and sell your fucking hideous family to the Sheikh from Taken, and you would keep your head down.
Like I said, I'm sure we will have more on this story in the weeks to come. I don't have much more to say about it right now, but I would just like to say to Mmuid Khil and his family, his wife, we are thinking of you. We're thinking of everyone who supports you. And like I said, if you're listening to this, I would really, really encourage you to make your voice heard on this issue in any way, shape, or form that you can.